The Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Heist. In April of 2015, London awoke to news of a robbery so bold it instantly entered criminal folklore. The target was the Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Company, located in the heart of London's jewelry district. Over the Easter weekend, while most people were celebrating with family, a crew of elderly thieves quietly pulled off the largest burglary in British history. The team, later nicknamed the Diamond Geezers, were not young hotheads but seasoned criminals, some in their 70s. They planned meticulously, casing the building and exploiting the holiday lull when the offices would be empty. Dressed in high-visibility vests to blend in as workmen, they slipped into the building and forced entry through a lift shaft that led to the underground vault. Once inside, they used industrial drills to bore through 2 feet of reinforced concrete. It was noisy, exhausting work, but the deserted holiday streets kept their efforts unnoticed. Beyond the wall lay more than 70 safe deposit boxes filled with cash, diamonds, and gold. The thieves spent hours hauling out bags of loot, escaping with an estimated £200 million worth of valuables. For a time, it seemed flawless, but investigators pieced together surveillance footage, vehicle records, and careless mistakes. The robbers' age made them distinctive, and soon most of the crew was arrested. They were convicted in 2016, their crime forever etched into Britain's criminal history. Despite the arrests, much of the treasure was never recovered. To this day, nobody knows exactly what became of the missing jewels and cash. The Hatton Garden heist captured the public imagination not only for its scale, but for its unlikely cast. Pensioners who proved that age does not dull ambition, at least in the world of crime. The Dunbar Armored Robbery. On the night of September 12, 1997, Los Angeles became the stage for the largest cash heist ever committed on American soil. The target was the Dunbar Armored Facility, a secure depot where millions of dollars were stored before distribution to banks and ATMs. At the heart of the crime was Alan Pace, a trusted employee who knew the building's security systems better than anyone else. Pace had been working at Dunbar for years, carefully studying the schedules, alarms, and camera placements. With 5 accomplices, all close friends, he decided to strike during a Friday night shift, when the vaults were full from bank deliveries and lightly staffed. Using his inside knowledge, the crew entered the facility with stolen keys, disabled cameras, and ambushed the guards with speed and precision. Once inside, they loaded more than $18 million in cash into waiting vehicles. The robbery was executed so flawlessly that investigators initially suspected it must have been an inside job. Yet Pace had planned carefully, even distributing the stolen money through shell companies and real estate deals to cover the trail. For nearly 3 years, the crew evaded capture. Their downfall came not from the police, but from greed. One of the robbers carelessly loaned marked bills to a friend, who eventually tipped off authorities. Investigators traced the money back to Pace and his partners. All were arrested, and Pace was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Although much of the money was eventually recovered, several $1 million remain missing to this day. The Dunbar Armored Robbery stands out not only for the staggering sum stolen, but also for the way it was executed, not with brute force, but with insider knowledge, patience, and planning. It proved that sometimes the most dangerous thief is the one who already holds the keys. The Brink's-Mat Robbery. On the morning of November 26, 1983, Heathrow Airport in London became the site of one of the most notorious robberies in British history. The target was a warehouse at the Brink's-Mat Security Depot, where guards assumed they were simply storing cash. What neither they nor the police expected was a heist that would make off with gold bullion worth more than £26 million, nearly $100 million in today's money. The robbery began when a gang of 6 men, armed and masked, entered the depot with the help of a security guard who was secretly in on the job. They overpowered the remaining guards, doused them with gasoline, and threatened to set them alight unless they cooperated. Initially, the thieves believed they were stealing £3 million in cash. Instead, to their astonishment, they discovered over 6,000 gold bars stacked in the vault. Loading the bullion into vans, the gang escaped with a haul so heavy that it required days of careful distribution. But such a large robbery could never stay quiet. The gold had to be laundered, melted down, disguised, and reintroduced into circulation. Over the years, investigators tracked trails of the precious metal surfacing in markets from London to the Middle East. Some estimates suggest that much of Britain's jewelry market in the 80s was tainted with Brinksmat gold. The fallout was bloody. Violence surrounded the laundering process as rival criminals fought for a share. Several people linked to the job were murdered, while others disappeared. Only 2 men were ever convicted of the robbery, and the majority of the gold was never recovered. The Brinksmat robbery earned a dark nickname, the crime of the century. It exposed the vulnerabilities of even high-security depots and demonstrated how a single inside man could turn guards into hostages and ordinary criminals into legends. The Northern Bank Robbery. On December 20th, 2004, Belfast, Northern Ireland witnessed the largest bank robbery in United Kingdom history. The target was the Northern Bank headquarters, and the thieves walked away with more than £26 million in cash. A heist so audacious, it still sparks debate and suspicion today. The operation began with a chilling tactic. Armed men dressed as police officers abducted 2 families of bank officials the night before the robbery. Holding the families hostage at gunpoint, the criminals forced the officials to return to work the next morning and carry out business as usual. Under duress, the employees gave the gang access to the vaults, where millions in banknotes were stored. Over the course of the evening, the thieves loaded up boxes of cash and vanished into the night. By the time the hostages were released, the robbers were long gone. The scale was staggering. £26.5 million stolen, along with smaller amounts in foreign currency. The operation was so professional that investigators immediately suspected links to paramilitary groups. Many pointed to the Irish Republican Army, though the organization denied involvement. The fallout was immense. The Northern Bank had to recall and reissue its entire line of banknotes to prevent the stolen cash from entering circulation. The investigation became one of the most expensive in British history, yet convictions were few. Only a handful of people were ever charged with laundering parts of the money, and the bulk of the fortune has never been recovered. The Northern Bank robbery remains infamous not only for its size, but for the sinister strategy of kidnapping families to ensure compliance. It blurred the line between organized crime and political violence, leaving behind questions that have never been fully answered. The Securitas Depot robbery. On the night of February 21, 2006, the quiet town of Tunbridge in Kent became the backdrop for the largest cash robbery in British history. The target was the Securitas Depot, where millions of pounds were stored for distribution to banks across the region. By the end of the night, armed thieves had stolen more than £53 million in banknotes, leaving behind a crime that stunned the nation. The operation began with a ruthless strategy. The gang kidnapped the depot's manager, Colin Dixon, along with his wife and young child. Disguised as police officers, they intercepted the family's car, threatened them, and forced Dixon to cooperate. Under duress, he allowed the gang entry into the depot, where staff were quickly bound and forced to lie face down while the robbers moved through the building. Once inside the secure vault, the thieves loaded pallets stacked with cash into waiting trucks. The sheer amount stolen, more than £53 million, was so heavy that they were unable to take it all, leaving behind another £200 million in notes. By the time police responded, the criminals were gone, and the staff and Dixon's family were left shaken but alive. The investigation that followed was massive. Several suspects were eventually arrested, including professional criminals and insiders who had helped plan the job. Some of the stolen cash was recovered, but the majority vanished into criminal networks, never to be seen again. The Securitas Depot robbery was shocking not just for the amount stolen, but for its cold-blooded tactics. It combined careful planning with brutal hostage-taking. reminding the public that even the most fortified facilities could be breached when fear and violence were used as weapons.